Factorio, a game that is likely more addictive than crack. You spawn in with nothing but a burner mining grill and a stone furnace, and you start drilling down at the nearest iron ore patch. And then it begins. The moment you research automation, the factory starts growing, and when it does, it won't stop. And it will keep growing until you lost your job, your wife, your kids, and everything that doesn't contribute to the factory's expansion. And it is going to keep growing. Once you start it, trust me, there is no escape. But how far can you go? How far can you expand the factory? And what even is the factory producing? Science. And democracy, of course, but the bugs are a topic for a different video. Science. In 1.0 there were 7 science packs. It starts with simply turning an iron plate into a gear and combining it with a copper plate to get automation science. The second one then makes you familiar with the basic logistics, and the next one makes you launch a rocket. Just kidding. There's a few steps in between, but those aren't important. Before the DLC released, that was all there was. You build all sciences, you start with like 60 science per minute in your mid-game base, and then you build it bigger and you get up to like 1000 science per minute. And then you just keep making it even bigger. And that's it. The two methods you had were either many belts or long trains. There wasn't much more you could do back then, and what people achieved was insane. Many bases reaching up to 10,000 science per minute. But due to the high performance impact of such bases, you couldn't get much further. But then, Factorio 2.0 released. Space Age brought hundreds of quality of life improvements along with a DLC that 10x'd the length of any average playthrough, along with 5 new science packs and literally an entire solar system worth of content with unique challenges on every planet. And trust me, not one of the overhaul mods from 1.0 came even close to what Space Age did. The most notable changes to Megabasing, besides of course the new science packs, are the changes to beacons, elevated rails which allow you to make way faster train networks, cargo landing pads, and buildings from the new planets. And one more that I'm gonna save for later in the video. But how do you? Megabase. The only real reason you will build a megabase is to produce thousands of science packs per minute. So the first thing you do is to, well, produce science. You take the ores as an input, convert them into the science, and then put them into labs. Then you copy it 10,000 times. And you're done. That's it. If your computer doesn't explode, that's 10,000 science per in-game minute. But as you might have figured out by the 5 frames I got, you won't actually make it to 10,000 science per real life minute. And there are many ways to improve builds. First would be ratios. Let's take the intermediate product that is probably the most used in the game, electronic circuits. They are made from 1 iron plate and 3 copper cables, and it takes 0.5 seconds to craft. But you only get 2 copper cables from 1 copper plate, and it has the same crafting time. So what do? If you put down another assembler for copper wires, you'll have 4 copper cables every 0.5 seconds, but you're only consuming 3 of them. So the best way to do it is to have 2 green circuit assemblers for every 3 copper cable assemblers, which would look like this. But there's one more issue you might spot. What is happening here is that the inserters, which are moving the items between the assemblers, are too slow to keep up with them. And how do you solve this issue? Well, you either put more of them down, which isn't possible in this case, or you just use faster ones. And you might think this looks easy. I'll just get my phone's calculator, do this a few more times, and it'll just work out. And well, it might work, or it might not, because you placed one singular build the wrong way. So now that we have 2 assemblers crafting a circuit every 0.5 seconds, we should have 4 of them per second. But wait, that's only 2. And that is because tier 1 assemblers have a crafting speed of only 0.5. But there is more. We got tier 2 assemblers, which already got a crafting speed of 0.75, and tier 3 with 1.25, which is a lot better, right? But after all, we are in Space Age. And it introduced the electromagnetic plant. It not only has an insane crafting speed of 2, but it also has an inbuilt productivity bonus of 50%. and a whopping 5 module slots. I'll explain those later. So there you go. This is basically all you need. You know how to make a build and how to improve it. The rest is just looking at progressively more complex crafting chains and applying the same principles over and over. So what did Space Age do that changed the way you would approach a megabase? First, it changed beacons. But what are beacons? Well, it distributes a modular fate to nearby buildings. But wait, what is a module? Most buildings have module slots. For example, assemblers have 2. Chemical plants have 3 and cryogenic plants even have 8 of them. And there are 4 types of modules you can put in those buildings: speed, efficiency, productivity and mystery. Speed simply makes the building faster but uses more power. Efficiency makes it use less power, the only downside being that it is useless unless you just got on a new planet. And productivity gives you a second progress bar on the crafting process, which literally gives you an extra product for free. And beacons, even though they can only use speed or efficiency modules, are even more overpowered than the 8 module slots on the cryogenic plants, since you can fit 12 of them around any assembler, and even more on larger buildings. Before Space Age, they used to just have a distribution efficiency of 0.5, but now it is 1.5, which literally makes it more efficient to use a beacon than simply putting the module in the building. But the more you use, the lower the distribution efficiency gets, which is supposed to stop players from spamming them, which in my opinion is a great change. But of course, overhauls aren't the only things we got. We also have new buildings. Before the DLC, Mark III assemblers and chemical plants were all we had, but now there is a new and better building for almost all things, and every planet gives you at least one more. Some of them having inbuilt productivity or just more module slots, but we also got a new mining drills, better belts, and the most overpowered building in all of Factorio, the Biolab. It has 4 module slots and a 50% science pack drain, which means that it only consumes half a science pack every cycle, doubling the productivity bonus. And if you use the best modules in the game, you can literally quadruple the science you're producing. But what is this? The orange thing there. What does it mean? What is it? This is the quality module. The 4th module I refuse to talk about until now. The module itself doesn't even do anything to the crafting process, but what gets crafted has a chance to be of a better quality than its ingredients. A higher quality inserter moves items faster, but a higher quality assembler also crafts faster. On top of that, higher quality speed modules give even more crafting speed, and on top of that, higher quality beacons have a higher distribution efficiency, which makes our previous setup work about 150 times faster than if you used commons. And now that we know how to build bases like this, or this, what is stopping us from expanding to infinity? Resources. Producing science consumes resources, so to produce more and more, we are going to need to relocate our mining drills and build new outposts, as our patches run out. Which is annoying and time consuming. But how long does it take for one to run dry? If it wasn't for research, this patch of 7.8 million iron would run out in about 25.5 hours. But after all, we do have research. A lot of research. And with only mining prod level 300 and 3000% mining productivity on our drills, this patch will last almost 800 hours. And if we want to realistically mine uncommon ores directly, we would need a minimum of 600 levels. I won't go into the details of why we would do that, this video is already long enough. So in conclusion, resources are infinite. Was this whole rant about miners necessary? No. But more watch time equals more money equals more Red Bull. Anyways, what else is there? Lag. We've already seen that performance is the biggest limiter. The average PC simply can't handle a billion assemblers. So we need to make every microsecond of processing power count towards producing science and nothing else. So no building for biters and no building for pretty graphics. Hell, I'm even gonna turn off disco science. Okay, maybe not disco science, I'm sorry. But in order to optimize, we need to know which process is more expensive than others to avoid them. The first thing we need to address are logistics. Belts and trains are good, but since Space Age, belts are the clear winner, since they can move up to 240 items per second. But bots and inserters on the other hand are a different story. But because A, you just need too many of them, B, whatever number you had in mind, double it, and C, they also need to charge, so you need even more of them. But now inserters. You also need a lot of them. Like a lot. But how do you cut inserters? I'm glad you asked. There's two main options. You use direct insertion instead of ratios. I know, getting the ratios wrong is sad, but sometimes the number of inserters you save on moving items is worth having an assembler idle. Other than logistics, I don't think there's much to look out for. The only thing you need to know is that beacons are basically for free and less buildings are better than more. The rest is pretty self-explanatory. But since I've been yapping about how to build a megabase for a little too long, let's look at the biggest ones built so far. But before that, how do you even measure the size of a megabase? Most people would just say if the UPS and the SPM are stable, you can just say that the SPM is how much your base is producing, and therefore that is the measurement that most people used to go for. But since Space Age, there is an infinite technology which increases your research productivity. That literally means that research gives you more research. But the productivity goes up linearly, and they cost exponentially. That means that at some point you're just gonna hit a ceiling at which the benefit of one level is so small that it won't make much of a percentage difference anymore. So the players decided to use two separate methods of measuring a base's science output: effective science per minute and bottles per minute. Effective SPM is still just the raw science you're getting out of your labs, and bottles per minute is simply how many science bottles the base is producing. This eliminates how long you have been standing AFK for research productivity, but also, even if it was at level 0, it divides the number of effective SPM by 4 due to the biolab and its modules. The numbers are more accurate, but also just sad. Now the question I've asked about 30 minutes ago. How far can you go with all of this knowledge? Well, that's a lot more. But that isn't even the limit. Those are just casual megabases, and I want to prove that. I'm also gonna get 1 million SPM or even more, but without research productivity, which means producing 250,000 bottles of all sciences per minute, or roughly 40 to 100 every second. This is almost 70 green belts of science and 30 times more as in the base game. I've already started a run and gathered all the legendary materials, but I've got like 300 hours worth of footage to edit, so don't expect to see me again before GTA 6.